Let's talk about abusive people and gift giving. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I have been working with victims of abuse as well as perpetrators of abuse for many, many years now. It's been pretty much my entire career, actually. But I want to talk about gift giving because I did a post about extravagant gifts can kill you and so on and so forth. Sorry, I'm just recognizing my eyebrows look like they've just been going to town. But I want to respond to this person's post. She put, "Oh, God forbid that someone gives me an extravagant gift," right? She said, "God forbid that this happens to me because my abusive mom and dad are gift givers or love bombers." And that's the thing that a lot of people, some people have on my post have challenges with, is that abusive people will often, they've often learned to, or conditioned victims to take them back without talking about or resolving the problem. So what they'll do is they will, they may take them out shopping, they may give them a gift, but they're very seldom going to address, if at all, really going to address the problems or change the behaviors that got you guys to that point. So they're not going to address the abuse. They're just going to, slap a band-aid on it by just buying you something, giving you money, and moving on. So, thank you for putting this, but I want to let people know that that's, their whole thing is like, there's a vacillation between meanness and charm. Meanness and charm. And what does a charming person do? They lavish you with gifts. They show you the world. They do all of these things, but then it's, only a short amount of time will pass before that person becomes Mr. and Mrs. Nightmare all over again, right? And so there's several variations of this, that I want to address in terms of gift giving, in terms of how this shows up. You can have someone who is depriving you of love, right? And so the way that a person will deprive you of love is that they never give you a gift, right? They never ever show you any gift. They always come up with some sort of excuse where they just cannot give you anything. Oh, they don't celebrate, or oh, they're tapped out, or they're not working, and so they're sort of mooching off of you, right? So you have those types of people that just they force, it's kind of like, when you're with that person, you're super embarrassed, right? Because you have to lie about it to family, and people are, "Oh, what did so-and-so give you for Christmas and your anniversary and blah, 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 blah. Oh, we've decided not to, celebrate. We've decided that we're not really into gift giving, and we're more into, some bullshit answer, right? That's one way, right? And people try to, the victims or survivors try to overcompensate by sort of lying or covering up, right? And that's based out of survival and just feeling ashamed of that relationship or ashamed of their own choices that they've made, right? So there's that. There is a person that will also deprive you of love by not ever acknowledging the gifts that you give them, not ever opening the gifts or acknowledging the gifts, not showing you any sort of recognition, appreciation for what you've done, right? And you may have sort of scoured, the earth till the end of days to find the perfect gift, the perfect card, and, just for them to kind of like leave your gift sitting for a year or 2 or 3 or never opened at all, right? And that's based on the idea that, like, there's a twofold to that. I don't feel worthy of being given a gift, and I'm not interested in deepening the connection or the relationship with the person who's giving me the gift. So there's not going to be any sort of vulnerability or intimacy or deepening of the relationship. And then there's, what I talked about last time, which is people that hurry up and give you extravagant gifts without them knowing you, right at the beginning is heavy duty love bombing. So you really haven't known each other for any sort of extended period of time that shows that you're worthy of giving a gift like this, right? Or that they should even actually want to feel the need to give you a gift like this. So it would be something like Rolex or expensive watches, expensive jewelries, cars, things like that, where there's this sort of extravagant display of love bombing with little to no connection, and they are expecting things from you, and oftentimes that can be your life, that can be your blood, it could be your undying devotion, but trust and believe that person is pathological, and you will pay for that gift. Not to mention, I mentioned before, criminal, right? So don't be surprised if you've got feds knocking on your door, or there's some sort of big takedown, or you find out that they're doing something else behind the scenes. And you guys, I'm 45. I'll be 46 soon. So and I mentioned yesterday how I noticed that there's a lot of people, young people in particular, I watch my content. So when you have young people that watch your stuff, and you talking, not to mention, I appreciate all of you guys, but especially when you have younger people, which is making almost 50% of the demographic that's watching me across all platforms. When you have young people, there is a sense of social responsibility that I have, to the younger generation, right? Because they're learning, they may have experienced something, they're trying to figure out some things, right? And you have, especially also too, that the younger generation is picking up on. You have these gurus, these social media content creators, these people who are lifestyle, coaches and soft life and things like that. Again, I'm not knocking any of that stuff, but one of the things that I could be wrong because I'm not really into it. I watch clips here and there, but it's not something that I consume on a regular basis. But one of the things I've never seen these women do is tell you about the abuse and things that comes with these elaborate gifts, especially when they have men or people that are giving them these elaborate gifts or paying for their lifestyles right out front. I think there's a social and moral responsibility that you have. And I grew up with women like that, so I'm not just talking out of some clip that I've seen, for 10, 20 seconds. I grew up with women like that. I have women like that in my family. They sort of, they expected to be spit on. They were, beautiful show ponies. So these women are very, I think that a lot of women who do this are very street savvy, right? They've been out, they've kind of seen it all, done it all, and been around all types of people. But what they don't tell you is that a lot of times there's violence that is coupled with the stuff. And that to me is socially irresponsible. And I've seen it, and I may have shared this with you before. I've seen it where women I've worked with have been this way back in the day, like when I was 18, 19, or 20. I've been in situations where women I know that were doing this kind of stuff, their person has come up to their job, our job where I worked at, and beat the shit out of them in front of everybody. Excuse my French, but just literally beat them senseless in front of everybody right there on the job, and walked right on, and that woman would pick up her stuff at the end of the day and go right on back to that man, because she was so addicted to those elaborate, those extravagant gifts, right? And so there's a lot of times there's a heavy price to pay, and that's what those content creators don't tell you, and I've seen it firsthand. And if somebody else mentioned, like, a rich man will give you this. Dr. Jones wasn't born yesterday. I didn't fall off the cabbage truck yesterday. My reputation precedes itself. So that means I've worked with celebrities, I've worked with ball players. Unfortunately, a lot of ball players I don't work with until they get in some serious trouble. But I've worked with all types of people, right? And even wealthy people, extremely wealthy people, are not going to overly invest in someone that they don't know like that unless there's some pathology there. Wealthy people are usually that way. People who've earned it are usually that way because they've been responsible with money, or they've inherited money and there's a sense of responsibility. No, they're children and things like that didn't necessarily have to work for it. That's usually a different story. But trust and believe, there's always a pathology there when you get things